Why are you still stuck in Diamond? Well, picking Dynamite first pick is the exact reason why. See, drafting is all theory. Every comp can be countered. You just need to find the correct brawler. So today, we're diving into what drafting really is and how you can use it to outsmart your opponents and rise up the ranks. So stick to the end and you'll become a drafting expert. First, we have all brawler categories. The problem is that a lot of brawlers can fit into 2 or even more categories depending on the map and mode. For example, Max is a support brawler in Brawl Ball because she can enable her teammates to push up the map easier with her super. But she has an assassin role in more passive game modes such as Bounty because she can dodge sniper shots easily and pressure them back. So the main categories are tanks, assassins, anti-tanks, damage dealers, controllers, snipers, and throwers. There's also support brawlers, but notice that they all belong to one of the main categories already. But it gets better because now we're gonna talk about brawler matchups. Every brawler category gets countered by another category regardless of the map and mode. Tanks' best counters are anti-tanks. It's literally in the name. Apart from that, damage dealers usually counter tanks as well as they can have a lot of damage to take them down. But some of them are just good to share the height safe, so bear that in mind. Tanks have short range, so they also get countered by wall breakers. Wall breakers are basically support brawlers that have the ability to break walls. But you still need a high DPS brawler combined with that wall breaker because otherwise tanks can still create a lot of pressure. Moving on, assassins are the same with tanks. They get countered by the same brawler categories, which are anti-tanks, damage dealers, and wall breakers, but you can also counter them by using tanks themselves because most assassins don't have the DPS to take them down. Now, anti-tanks and damage dealers are really versatile, but they lack range, so their best counter is controllers, which usually have more range than them. You can also pick snipers, throwers, or a wall breaker in combination with a controller or a sniper to counter them. But this heavily depends on the map. But don't worry because we're gonna talk about maps in a while, so stay till the end. Next up, controllers are used to control the map, but they lack damage, so their best counters are tanks and assassins. But you can also play throwers and wall breakers depending on the map. Now, snipers and throwers are usually the brawlers with the lowest HP, so the best way to counter them is to pick tanks and assassins. But the cool thing between those two is that they also counter each other. This mostly depends on the map again, but you can play throwers to counter snipers and a wall breaker in combination with the sniper to break open the map and counter throwers. So let's take a look at an example draft to implement this correctly. Our random just went first pick Dynamite and Shooting Star. And yes, this is a real comment from my previous video. Let's say that the opponents then pick Tick second and Piper third. Given that they have a sniper and a thrower, your fourth pick should definitely be an assassin or a tank. For example, Carl. But if you pick 2 assassins, the opponent has last pick, so they can pick an anti-tank and destroy you. So your fifth pick should be a brawler with enough range to compete against the snipers, but enough damage to counter the enemy if they go something more aggressive as a last pick. Those brawlers are usually supports, and they can help your tank or assassin to push up the map easier. So you can either go Jean, Max, Byron, or even Gray to support your Carl and create enough pressure to win the game. But it gets even better because, as you can probably tell, none of these matchups are 100% accurate. Different brawlers can get countered in different maps and modes. So in these next few minutes, we're gonna analyze how you can draft depending on the M&Ms. Well, not these, but the maps and modes. But let me tell you something real quick. You look beautiful today. If that made you smile, or if you're finding this video helpful so far, consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. I promise you won't regret it. Maps are categorized by open or closed. Open maps don't have a lot of bushes or walls, but closed ones do. But a map can also be opened and closed at the same time, depending on what position you're playing. So for open maps, snipers, controllers, and long-range brawlers in general are the best ones to draft. But for closed ones, we have 2 categories. Maps with a lot of walls and bushes will be good for tanks, assassins, and anti-tanks, which can get picked to counter the first 2. But in maps with less bushes, you should always consider a thrower in your comp as well, as they can be really toxic if the enemy comp is really squishy. Keep in mind that wall breakers are also a viable choice to break open the map for longer range brawlers to thrive. But if the map has too many walls and bushes, wall breakers will not work most of the time because they will get pressured by tanks and assassins early on and they won't be able to break open the map efficiently. But the first M was the easy part. Let's jump into the second M, modes. We're gonna analyze every single game mode separately and give you guys the best categories for it. Starting with Brawl Ball. In this mode, you can literally pick anything. It heavily depends on the map. For example, example, if the map has a lot of walls, you can even pick a thrower like Larry or Juju as a first pick. The main thing to have in Brawl Ball is mobility. Tanks and assassins fit well here, and these are the ones with the most mobility, but you don't want to draft them too early because they get countered easily. You also need an anti-tank in most cases, either to counter the opponent's tanks or to prevent them from going any. But a really important thing that most people forget, especially in Brawl Ball, is to draft a good mid as well. This is usually gonna be another anti-tank or a controller, but with good range. Moving on to Gem Grab. Gem Grab is the simplest game mode. You need a good mid brawler that can do well against aggressive brawlers as well. These are called gem carriers. You also need an aggressive brawler that can pressure the opponent gem carrier and try to take them down. These can either be tanks, assassins, or even throwers, depending on the map. But most importantly, you need another lane brawler that can defend against those aggressive brawlers. These brawlers are usually anti-tanks, but they can also be assassins or controllers, depending on the enemy matchups. Now, bounty is simple as well. The main thing here is range. So pick snipers early on, but be prepared to counter them with throwers or even assassins in some rare cases if you have last pick. Also, these are some brawlers that are good into snipers and can be used earlier on in the draft. You can play them pretty much every single time if you're unsure on what to go to counter the enemy. But knockout, on the other hand, is very different. In bounty, you rarely go an assassin, but in knockout, as the gas closes in, you need to have at least one brawler with a lot of HP to withstand the pressure. Therefore, an assassin is more likely to get picked. So there are three types of brawlers you generally need to have. You normally need a sniper earlier in the draft, then a thrower, and then you usually need an assassin or a tank for when the gas closes in. Of course, survivability is key here, so if they go an anti-tank for example, you need to be careful with that last pick. Moving on to hot zone. You need two types of brawlers. Brawlers that will create pressure for your team and brawlers that can stand in the zone. Controllers are necessary here because they can easily control a large area of the map. Don't make the mistake of bringing one too many though, because you will get run down by high HP brawlers. Speaking of high HP brawlers, they can be paired with support brawlers to create a lot of pressure. For example, Barry with a tank is a nearly unstoppable comp in hot zone, but be aware that you can also play throwers, as most maps have a lot of walls that favor Larry, Juju, or other high DPS throwers. But unlike the other modes, Heist is super straightforward. You need safe damage, so the best category is gonna be the damage dealers, which can be good against tanks, but their main purpose is to destroy the safe in Heist. But if you pick 3 damage dealers, you can get easily countered. So you also have to pick another brawler that can enable the damage dealers to push up the map and destroy the safe. These are typically snipers, controllers, or even assassins in some cases if the map is closed enough. But now that we covered everything, it's time to see what happens when you're actually in the drafting screen. So what should you ban? If your team has first pick, you should ban good last pick brawlers. These are usually assassins, tanks, or throwers. But if the opponents pick first, try banning the meta, which are the strongest brawlers in the game or in that specific map or mode. Now let's see how to pick brawlers. If you have first pick, pick the meta. It depends on the map and mode of course, but the good thing about the meta brawlers in general is that they can be used in most scenarios. But when it comes to the mid picks, it's more complicated. If you have second or third pick, either try countering the opponent's first pick or pick versatile brawlers that are usually the best options after that first pick. If you have the option to pick a brawler that does both, do it. You can also pick a support brawler as a second or third pick, to pick a tankier brawler as a last pick and have better team synergy. Now the late mid picks, aka 4th and 5th, are really important because when you pick the 5th brawler, your comp is finished. So you need to make sure that you have a well-rounded comp that can deal against all different categories. That way there's a smaller chance for the opponents to find the right brawler to counter you. Apart from that though, your 4th and 5th picks should counter the 2nd and 3rd picks of the enemy and should also be good into the last pick as well. Finally, last pick is my favorite one because you're able to see the whole draft and you can pick a brawler that synergizes with your teammates' brawlers but also has the potential to counter the entire enemy composition. These brawlers are typically assassins, tanks, or throwers as mentioned before. But if the enemy composition has little to no weaknesses, you can go a strong brawler overall that doesn't counter them completely but can do well against them. Drafting is really complicated, and apart from theory, you also need to practice in order to learn how to draft correctly. But if I were you, I would rewatch the video and take notes as well, because without this you're gonna be hard stuck for a long time. If you made it this far, you know you need to subscribe, so just do it. And if you want a more in-depth analysis on how to position yourself correctly on the the map, you should also check out this video right here, and hopefully I'll see you there.